Hello and welcome to Sex Is, the podcast brought to you by DC Health Sex Is. My name is Poet Taylor of WPGC at 95.5. And this, believe it or not, is episode 4 of the Sex Is podcast series. Today, we're continuing our discussion from episode 3, where we talked about pop culture, but how it pertained to sex and sexual health in music. Today, we're going to take it a step further and talk about how sex and sexual health is represented when it comes to television and movies and pop culture. Like, do they even talk about sex and sexual health? Should they be talking about sex and sexual health? Would you listen if your favorite actor or artist spoke up and talked about sex and sexual health? But first, we have to talk about the Sexist Campaign to make sure that you are in the know, because when you know better, you do better, you move better. So Sexist is a campaign by DC Health that encourages open, honest, and judgment-free, I love that word, judgment-free conversations about sex and sexual health among youth and between youth and their trusted adults. We wanted to provide a really safe space for everyone to discuss sex and sexual health their way. So can we get right into our panel today? Because it ain't no fun if I ain't got nobody to talk to. So welcome, esteemed panel. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 4 of Sex Is, the podcast series. Could you please introduce yourself? Let our audience know who you are, where you're from, and what pronouns we should use when we address you.
I can start. My name is Reese. I'm from Southeast DC. I go to Bucknell University, and my pronouns is she, her, and hers.
My name is Ayana. I'm a senior at Duke Ellington School of the Arts. My pronoun is she, her, hers, and I live in Northeast DC.
Okay, I'll go. My name is Danae Bennett. I am a sophomore at Tufts University, and I am from Northeast DC, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hi guys, my name is Belinda. I live in Northwest Washington, D.C. I'm a freshman at Wilson High School, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm a senior at Ellington, and I live in Northwest, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
And my name is JP. I live in Northeast Washington, D.C. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm a junior at Woodrow Wilson High School.
I want to thank you all again for coming, for sharing your experiences, your thoughts. We're going to all learn today. But before we get into today's discussion, can I just ask how everyone's heart is? How is life treating you? Anybody need some virtual hugs? Because I got lotion on today.
I'm doing well. I'm kind of going through it. I got like college admissions and everything, and that's no fun. But like overall, like I'm going to make it. It's good.
Yeah, I think this week is definitely better. I just got done with finals. So now I'm getting back to actually getting a little more sleep and doing what I want to do instead of what I had to do for classes.
I'm in the same boat as Lauren. I am filling out college applications and scholarships and working on the SAT. So it's a pretty stressful week for me.
Yeah, I'd also say it's pretty stressful. I'm still working. This is my finals time, so it's a lot going on with me having to work, and I actually had to take off of work tomorrow because I have a final tomorrow.
Yeah. For me, it's been pretty good. We're getting into the Christmas spirit. Like, we're so close to Christmas, which is like an exciting thing for me. So yeah.
It's been a very tiring week. Luckily, I get to end it with you guys, but other than that, I've just been doing a lot of work. Physics has been trying to beat me down, but I'm putting in work and I'm taking over it, man.
Well, I'm going to sit here and vibe in your presence. For me, life is just life, and in 2020 just keeps 2020ing. So I've decided to just find continuous ways to live, laugh, learn, and love, and eat snacks. And so far, I've been sticking to that regimen. On a scale of 1 to 10 with fingers, how are we doing our self-care, though, as we handle all other things? I think I'm about. All right. I'm just going to say I'm happy to see that there's some self-care happening. I would like to see some of y'all up the love on yourself. So let's get into our conversation today. As we think about pop culture, movies and television, what are we watching right now? And when we think about what we're watching, can you kind of expand on the relationships you see or the hookups that you see that make you, I got to tune in, I got to know what's next? Because then I want to ask y'all some other things so I understand. What we watching?
For me, I love Netflix, HBO, Hulu, like all of that. So the top 3 for me that I'm watching is Big Mouth, which I've seen seasons 1 through 3, and they just came out with season 4. And that's like talking about like kids growing up into like their teenage years and hitting puberty and asking these certain questions about their bodies. Then Euphoria, which I'm excited for a new season in the new year. And that talked about a lot about like taboo things that's happening in teenage lives. And then we have Lovecraft, which has just finished. And that's like a mix of like history, magic, religion, so much different things. And it has different like relationships within that as well.
I also watch Big Mouth, and I actually just seen the new season. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but it's like really good. Like I was just like, there were so many times that my mouth was just like in awe. I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. Like this is wild. And they got into some really inclusive stuff this season, so it was really nice. So yeah, and I also watch Married at First Sight. That's like my favorite show. I like saw one episode and like started binge watching it. It's just like really nice to see how the relationships are formed over time with this stranger. It's like you don't know this person, and then you end up, not liking them when you meet them, and then you end up like getting to know them over the course of 3 months, because they only have 3 months to decide whether or not they want to stay married. So it's just a really good show. I always like thought about maybe doing it for fun because it looks fun. They go on vacations, they go to like Cabo and retreats in the woods and the cabins and see bears. It's like really fun and adventurous. So that's what I look at it as. But it also like lays the groundwork for like relationships where people have to base it off of something other than sex because they don't know who they're talking to.
Yeah, and what you watching?
I'm watching the Chilling Avengers of Sabrina, and that is filled with sex. And it's kind of sad because they do a lot of sexual innuendos against adults and kids, with Sabrina being forced to marry the devil himself, or else like he's gonna like kill her family. So, and the adults encourage it. They encourage the sexual innuendos between like adults and students. And it kind of terrifies me because it's being geared towards teenagers, So if they get sexually advanced by an adult, they're going to think it's okay. And that's something I'm kind of on the fence about.
I had no idea. I remember watching Riverdale and thinking that I saw some things, the characters that are supposed to be like high school students, that they were doing. One of my favorite shows was Gossip Girl. And I would watch that and be like, ooh, the way it kind of celebrates all the things my parents have kind of been telling me don't necessarily go in there and do, but I've done. Belinda, what are you watching?
So right now I've been rewatching Money Heist, which I'm pretty sure we've all watched at some point. Well, I hope. And like one of my favorite things about the show is that like they've normalized non-hero relationships. Like there's this one guy in the show where like he likes boys, and like his friends are like encouraging him, and that's like one of my favorite parts. And they've also normalized like sex scenes. It might sound weird, but like, yeah, I really like the show.
Anybody else want to spill their watching secrets?
Alongside getting ready to watch the new season of Big Mouth, I finished Dexter this year. Phenomenal show. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's basically about this sociopathic murderer who works in the homicide division of a police force. And he helps them solve murders, but kills the murderer before the police force can arrest them. And his relationships end up extremely messy because he's a sociopath. So he doesn't express empathy, although other people who are trying to get in a relationship with him do. And the whole point of the show is that he's such a desirable person, but he always has some secret that he's hiding from everyone. And two other shows that I've been suggested. One is called Queen's Gambit. And the reason I've been suggested that is because I've gotten really into chess for some reason. And from what I've been told, it's just about this woman who's extremely good at chess, and she basically gambles away by playing chess. And then this other show is called Kakaguri or something. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's an anime about this school where all the students are heavily addicted to gambling, and their whole school life is centered around gambling, to the point where if you're in debt, you're basically made a slave to whoever you lost to. And this is going to sound silly, but the show portrays them as so addicted to gambling that they derive sexual pleasure from it. So those are two things I have on my slate.
I took a few notes. That sounds very interesting. Of the shows that you watch, do you find that you can relate to the scenarios or the characters themselves or some of the things that they feel challenging? And if you are comfortable, would you like to share the show, the character, and how it relates?
So what Married at First Sight is pretty real. So there was one woman this season, I don't remember her name, but there was one woman this season who basically didn't want to have sex with her husband. And they're married, they're adults, but at the same time, she just was like, I don't know this man. And, they had to stay married to each other longer than the program because of COVID. They had to like live with each other for like half a year because, the lockdown. So it's just like, she's just like, I'm just not ready to have sex with this man. I just feel like I don't know him enough. And I'm also one who, would rather wait before I, would want to jump into sexual relationship with a stranger. It's just like, it was just how her husband was just like making her feel bad for not wanting to, but also like making it seem like he was supportive of her decisions. So that was pretty odd, but I related.
Yeah, I would say some of the shows I've been watching, it's both like I relate to it, and then it's also like other parts where it's like, oh wow, I never knew this at all. I learned more from it. So like with Big Mouth, I know it was a scene earlier in like season 1 and 2 where like, okay, they were talking about when one of the girls first started like her period and she became all cranky and all this other stuff. And she's like, should I act this way or should I not? Are these good ways to act when I am on my period? What are the things I'm supposed to do? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's actually something that I think personally girls go through all the time when they first venture on in that like area in their life. And then on the other side of like not necessarily relating, is like in the TV series Lovecraft, we have a character, the father of the main character, his name is Montrose. They found out later that he's gay, and then we go into like an emotional roller coaster where we find out like, okay, there's a lot of things that he went through emotionally. And sometimes, like with the LGBTQ community that like a lot of people go through a lot, but when you actually see it and you actually see it being depicted on TV and you're going into these hypothetical, but could be so real type of stories, it really makes you empathize with them. And that's the other side of like, I can't necessarily relate, but I can feel you on it. So
Lauren, how about you?
Like I think that there's an element of me like of relating stuff because like I watch a lot of reality TV, and like my 90 Day Fiance is like my favorite show in the whole world and everything. And obviously like if that's a very specific situation, I'm not, like trying to get a immigrant over here to marry and love them and all that, but so I don't think I relate to it, but I don't know. I like the drama of it and like the stakes and everything. Like I think that's kind of how I feel about relationships too. Is like it can kind of feel like the end of the world, or like like it becomes your life.
So since you are more of a reality show watcher, I'll start with you with this one. How do you think sex, gender, relationships, and such are portrayed with reality TV? Like I know 90 Day Fiance and Married at First Sight, but when we see a Love and Hip Hop or a Black Ink or whatever it is that tickles your fancy, are we seeing realistic things like we see in our own life? Are we seeing some things and thinking they maybe might want to talk to somebody in that life?
I feel like they're kind of like overly presented in a way, and like at first I'm thinking about a Real Housewives and like. Real Housewives of Atlanta, and then Candy Burgess, I think is her name, and like she is a sex therapist, and she has like her own line of sex toys and sex like parent like just items, I guess, like like candles and lubes and all that and everything, and so it can feel like a little bit overly presented and staged about like, oh yes, this is my like intense hot sex life, like and we do it every night 20 hours a day, we get in at a minimum of 12 times, like I don't know, just like I feel like when people are presenting their own lives, they're going to present a fantasy of their sex life and like what this great sex life that they want to have and everything. So like and that kind of avoids the reality that like sex isn't always this fantastical experience for people.
Ayana, I saw you nodding and smiling like, yeah.
I actually don't watch that much reality TV, so I'm not really sure I can give my input. I'm more of a, cast and crew with storyline, plotline type of gal.
Okay. When you watch your storylines with plot lines, do you find that they represent the relationships that you're seeing amongst you and your tribe, or do you feel like they get some things right and then they get some things wrong?
I feel like sometimes they over romanticize relationships, you know, with like high school relationships. They show them going on long trips and always spending the night over each other's houses and stuff like that. And I know a lot of my peers, we're not allowed to do that. You know, with me specifically, my mom, I'm not allowed to go over to anybody's house like 10 o'clock at night, you know what I'm saying, spend the night at my boyfriend's house. Or I'm not allowed to just drive up down to North Carolina whenever I want to spend time with my boyfriend. But sometimes they do get it right when they show the struggles of a high school relationship with the cheating, because you know high school boys they do that sometimes, or with just the lack of communication, because we're all still young and we're still minors and we're still figuring out how to communicate with each other. So that I do think they get right.
Belinda?
Oh, I just wanted to say also, I'm just like Ayana. I rarely watch reality show. Like one of the only ones I watch is called, I believe, Love Island, and like they don't really portray a lot of like non-hetero relationships. But like from some shows that I've seen, I feel like they've improved more from before, from like not having so many shows to making it like more normal. Like they've normalized it more, and I feel like that's good because now people like are able to express themselves in a way that before they couldn't.
So then I pose this question to my esteemed panel. What are your thoughts on how non-hetero relationships are portrayed on television and in media?
It just, in my opinion, it seems that women homosexual relationships are more deemed as like always sexual and just naughty, and then like it's this fetish. It's just like they're like kiss, you know, like we want you to kiss, but then when it's two men, it's just seemed as like comedic relief. Like they put those characters in just to add the elements of having a homosexual man with the dramatic effects and the, you know, the different vocabulary or the different, like the way they act and behaviors. It's just like, it's seen as just this way to entertain when it's men, but when it's women, it's seen as like, oh, this is sexy. This is something that I like. But like, you know, they always just, it's gendered. It's very gendered in my opinion.
Reese, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like more today, we do have examples of like seeing a little bit more representation than like back in the day where like our parents were watching TV or something. But I do feel like they are doing a better job because like I know just from some examples like Love, Simon, I personally really like that movie. And they didn't really focus so much on like he's homosexual and we're just going to show all of these things about him being homosexual after he figured out that it was homosexual. Like, no, we went through like his life and like how his friends supported him, the things that he encountered with his family members and things like that. So I do feel like they're doing a better job now in mainstream like movies and television shows, but you know, there's still like more to get to. So yeah.
JP, you have any thoughts?
I was gonna say that oftentimes, like Denai was saying, that that two women are usually fetishized and made overly sexual for no reason, just to kind of cater to the male fantasy, I guess is the way you could put it. And a lot of the time that two men are either put there to be overly gay, like to the point where it's like their whole personality becomes being gay. And they do that just so they can kind of have that token. Look, guys, we put in a gay person. Are you happy now? It's like when companies started hiring more Black people so they can look better. Like, look, guys, we're hiring Black people. We're diverse now, even though they should have been doing that from the start. And it often makes gay people seem like they aren't normal people at all. Like they act in a way that makes them stand out intentionally, even though all the gay people I know, they don't do that. They fit in with everyone else. They don't walk around wearing all rainbow like these shows often depict, and they aren't over stereotypically gay. That's just not how it is in reality.
JP, I'm happy that you mentioned what your reality is like. Do you think that when people see this portrayal of non-hetero characters, that they then take those assumptions and those things that are insinuated out into the real world and then project them on real people?
Yes, 100%. Oftentimes, stereotyping comes from what's portrayed on media. That's why so many white people who have never really interacted with Black people see the news and see how the news portrays us and then says, I got to stay away from them now. If you don't interact with the community and you don't actually know them, you end up only thinking what's on media is the truth. Your truth is kind of overshadowed by whatever's fed to you.
The narrative.
So I just wanted to add on, like JP was saying, it's just like they aren't surrounded in that by that community. And like I said, it's like as you grow up, you see things around you, and that's what helps you shape your opinions and your thoughts, you know, your family's beliefs, your friends' beliefs, and what you see, like JP said, in the media. It's basically your, you know, main ways of getting your information, unless you do your own outside research. So when you see this kind of image being like portrayed as the norm, it's just like, okay, well, maybe this is what I should believe in. And then people, you know, end up either being confused about homosexuality or being homophobic and not having like any information behind it because they didn't take the time to educate themselves and only look to the media for their, you know, research.
As we think about narratives and stereotypes and people and how they take what they see and then project it, do you think that perhaps when we think of television and movies at a younger age, and if so, what age should we start introducing just different relationships and different experiences and different walks of life?
And I feel like it's more about like not so much the type of relationship as it is about like the situation that couple is going through. Because it's like obvious, like you're not gonna have a peach like the rating system and everything. Like it's not so much based about like gender and the kind of relationship and stuff, but it's more so about like the situations that the couple's going through. Like obviously if it's, you know, just two guys kissing and stuff, that's a whole different scenario than like, you know, like a story that's surrounding their sexual relationship and journey to like, you know, like I don't know, it's more about like how graphic is the sexual content, like the matters, you know, rather than what it is.
Yeah, I also think it kind of depends too. Like, I think it's more of like a spectrum of like, you know, you never really, there's no limit, or like you never really know like when your child is ready, you know, like, you know, you have some children who know for a fact that, you know, like, oh, I don't feel the same inside from my appearance on the outside at a young age. And then you have children who, you know, are going through their own journey as they grow up. So I don't think there's a specific age or time of where like you should technically like influence your children to watch these certain things. But I think overall, knowing like that relationship you have with your child or whatever, it'll like help them throughout their life.
Yeah. Like Reese was saying, it's like I don't think it's so much about what your child is being like. I think it's more about what your child is being restricted from than what they have access to and everything. Like obviously, I'm not gonna let my 10-year-old watch like a really graphic type film. You know what I'm saying? Like and the reason is because they're 10, not because of what's in the film. You know, and so I think it's like I'll bar access to that type of material. Whereas like the older they get, it's you know, it's like less barriers as opposed to like, oh yeah, like let's pick and choose what to restrict, you know?
So a show like Sesame Street, maybe introducing a character?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are like same, like Elmo's friend has like a same sex parent couple or something like that.
Now, what about when we start talking about non-binary characters and their representation?
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, I don't see a lot of representation when it comes to non-binary people. And I feel like that kind of sucks on like society's own type of role with it too, because I mean, we hear these like titles of like these names and I know of it, but because I don't really have that example or I don't even see that example, it's hard for me to, you know, emphasize or like know, you know, what they do, who they are, like, you know, how does it look, how does it not look, you know? So it is hard when you don't see something and then you're trying to like put two and two together.
And I wonder how hard it is to not see something and feel something but have nothing to compare it to, or basically to compare it to. So now that we've talked a little bit about the relationships and the things we see and we don't see, can we talk a little bit about the characters that we see, and if we're seeing enough consent giving, talking about kinds of protection. When we think about and I want you to think about the shows that you enjoy. Euphoria is a really good show. Insecure is another one of my favorites. Both had episodes and scenes where I was like, I don't know if there was a sexy way to introduce some consent in the condom, but because I know people have moments like this where it's the heat of the moment and it's the passion. So what are your thoughts based on what you watch, whether it's reality TV or scripted, about how they talk about sex, sexual health, consent giving, protection of all kinds?
So in Tyler Perry's Lottery Ticket, we can see the end of the towards the middle of the movie. There's a scene where the character Bow Wow is playing is about to have sex with a woman, and he pulls out a condom, and she goes, "Oh no, let's not use that. You know, every other baby mama on this block has a rich baby daddy. I like to be one of those women too." And he's just like, "No." And then she like proceeds to put him out. But then later on in the movie, we see him with another woman who's like, "Oh, we're not doing this without a condom." And he's like, "Really?" Like, he's just so taken aback that, you know, someone wants to use a condom. And I feel like this is definitely the stuff that we need to see, because yes, we want to promote, you know, enjoyable sex, but we also want to promote safe sex and healthy and consensual sex. So I feel like this is definitely an image that needs to be portrayed a lot more in stuff that we watch nowadays.
Yeah, I definitely like that, what Danae said too. And then also I just feel like there's a variety. Like, you have these movies that, you know, don't necessarily, like, they just get right to the point just because they want to express this. And then you have other movies that, you know, they do emphasize like using condoms. So for example, I know like with my Love Black movies that I watch, that is literally like The Wood, for example, when he was about to have sex with Alicia, which is one of the characters in the movie, he literally was like, "Oh, I don't have a condom." She was like, "Oh, okay, well, my brother has a condom. Just hurry up and run to his room and come back." And then it was this whole scene of like, he's hiding in his brother's room because the brother had just came in the house. And this is like all the obstacles just to get the condom to have sex with, like, you know, this girl. And I thought that was like, you know, really cool. Then with Love and Basketball, that favorite scene of Monica and Q about to have sex with Maxwell playing in the background, he like literally goes over and he takes the condom and he puts it on. Like, literally, like, they don't show it as much, but it's emphasized like, okay, yeah, this is safe sex. But then on the other hand, we have like Titanic, when Jack and Rose was having sex on the boat. I didn't really see a condom of what's going on, or like The Notebook, when they was having sex in the house, it kind of was like straight there. So you have like a variety. I think it is there. And then in certain ones, it's not.
So what about asking for consent and receiving a definite yes? Have you seen it? What were you watching? Do we not see it enough?
I think what first comes to mind is the show not Clueless, Shameless, right? So Shameless is like a pretty raunchy type, like, graphic show about like life, you know, like people in Chicago and like kind of going through it. And so I think it was like this one, like, they don't ever have sex without like an acknowledgement that we're about to do this, you know what I'm saying? And so even if it isn't like a, do you want to do this? Yes, I want to do this. I feel like every time that they show a sex scene, there is a pause and like a realization of both parties to, like, you know, breathe, and then like you know that there's a moment to proceed, you know, like they're both making a choice to proceed rather than like going with the flow, or, you know, heat of the moment type stuff.
Yeah.
Add on.
Ooh, I love that. We'll go Belinda, Ayana, and then Reese will do you. Can we do it in that order? So Belinda, you start.
Yeah. Okay, so like there's a show called 13 Reasons Why, and basically like they make like consent one of like a big thing. So like there's this girl named Jessica, and like she's like drunk and she's like about to get raped by this boy named Bryce. And I feel like the show really portrays how like consent is a big thing. Like he actually raped her, like without her actually saying a yes, like it's okay with her because she was drunk. And I feel like that's like a way how shows should like do that, like saying like consent should be like a thing where it's like a definite yes, or either like if it's not a definite yes, it's like no, like just stop. And I feel like it shows like younger viewers how like consent is a big thing. Like it's not just a one person thing, it should be a 2-person thing.
I was gonna say, for me, it's actually very rare for me to see verbal consent given between characters. Usually, they just go right into it, and the female character usually follows the male character's lead. And I think it really just shows the audience that like you don't need verbal consent to move forward, which is something that I kind of disagree with because, again, like Belinda said, they can be under the influence and they can't really give verbal consent. Someone can, get charged with rape for that. And I feel like we should have more representation of consent in TV shows and movies.
Yeah, I definitely feel what everyone had just said. And also, like, I do think going back to like Lauren's point too, that it's important to know that like there are two forms of consent, like kind of like what Ayana just said too. Like you have verbal consent where like you actually say it. Then you have like body language. And I sometimes it's like, you're signaling to your partner, like, yeah, keep going, but you don't actually like say it. And I feel like that's like a thin line between both. Especially like I've seen this movie called Grace, and it's with Ryan Destiny when she was like really, really young, and she was dating this older dude, and she was in high school, and basically like she had met up with him, and they were like at his like hotel or whatever, and he went to the bathroom, and he came back out with like a larger group of men. Like the men was literally like in the bathroom waiting, and so they followed like into the room, and they basically contributed to like gang rape and rape culture. And it comes to the point where it's like the whole time throughout that scene in that movie, Ryan Destiny was showing nonverbal communication with her body language. Like, I'm not comfortable. I thought I was at first, but I'm not now. Why is this happening? And this was just with this one man. And then when multiple men came, it was more like, they was like, F your feelings. We just gonna keep doing what we want to do. And it's like, okay, now it's like, okay, where is this verbal consent and where is this body language that you refuse to read off of me, So I think it's like really, really important.
How do you think would be the best way, given the scene that you just described, what do you think is the best way for maybe writers or directors to bring those in? Like I often think of the shows, a Riverdale or a Gossip Girl or Euphoria, where you guys said it earlier, we always get the sex, but none of the things that kind of surround it. So it leaves, if you're the viewer, thinking, oh, it's that simple or that quick. So should that be standard? That if we're gonna have this kind of X, Y, and Z scene, there has to be something that shows this part too? Or is that asking too much of the pop culture entertainment industry?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's asking too much, but I do think it does create people to talk about. Like certain scenes like that one from Grace, the movie, it really, I think it had multiple people sitting there like, wow, actually, let me think about this. Like, let me think about, okay, how I'm going to move later in my relationship. Let me think about certain situations, because certain things that you do out of just like, oh, okay, this is something harmless. And really, you honestly have to like double take and think about it. And then on the dude's perspective is literally like, okay, you need to acknowledge what you're doing and what you're contributing to certain situations when it comes to consent and sex. So I do feel like if directors of like movies don't necessarily put a strong emphasis on it, it still also brings people to like talk about it.
To add on to what Reese was saying, I feel like movies and shows make sex seem like it's like, oh, a happily thing, like it's only good, the good side about it, but they never showed like the bad sides about it, like, oh, what if this person gets pregnant? Oh, what if this person gets STD or STIs? Like they never show the negative side of it. Like they only make it seem like a good thing, which I think they should show more of the negative side.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
I don't know, I think like at the same time, like you can't, like television and media is still somebody's art. And so like, even though it's like nice to, talk about like, implementing safer sex and like verbal consent and everything, it's still, we can't like mandate that from like artists that, want to make the kind of like just like if they want to, have sex work in a certain way, then they, like we can't make them. I mean, as long as you're not showing, things that are like, that are downright, degrading to people,
The reason why I asked is because I remember watching 13 Reasons Why, and after certain episodes with certain triggers, the characters would come on and say, hey, in this episode, you saw that rape, and they would give information about that, consent and what no looks like. So in my mind, I'm thinking, would it be asking too much for those kind of things? And would you listen if the actors or artists from your favorite shows had a little speaking piece? Or, yeah, I'm promoting my movie and my series, but on my Instagram, here's a PSA about, hey, when you watch this show or this movie, there's some things that you're going to see, and they kind of address it that way.
I think when you go to like content that can be triggering or graphic and stuff, that's when it's like more important to put in things that are like trigger warnings and like, you know, like educate the public on topics that are just so like intensely like not okay. But then but when it comes to like condom use and like, you know, and like saying yes, you know, like verbally, then I don't know, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think actors can bring into their own hands on what they do and what they promote, like on their own social media and stuff like that. And I really kind of like that part about 13 Reasons Why, which like after each episode or whatever, they had like a trigger warning and they had like things of where you can go to, because that is helpful sometimes. And, you know, even if the director themselves don't want to mess up like their craft or their art and depicting it and having like a pause in the middle of the whole thing, I think the things that you can do around it and like promoting it and stuff like that is really important when saying, okay, these are the resources. Let's talk about this on a little more serious note if they wanted to.
Now, speaking of talking when we see things that may trigger or be uncomfortable, what is your initial reaction when there is an intimate scene in a movie or a television show you're watching with your trusted adult, or maybe not necessarily your trusted adult, but an adult in your life? Are we squeamish? Are we embarrassed? Are we striking up conversation about what we saw?
I feel like the only time that I spark a conversation is when I'm with my sister. One of my older sisters is my trusted adult. And so there's been like a couple of times she's reacted. She's like, Nate, not right now. Like, I'm not trying to have this conversation right now. It's like, I guess because I'm the youngest sister, they have to brace themselves when they hear me ask questions or mention things. They're just like, whoa, give me a sec, then come back, and then let's try that again. But me and my dad are on a cool enough note to note that I'm an adult. I've seen it. I'm not a child. Like, that's obviously how I got here. So like, I understand, you know, the point of it, but like, you don't have to worry. Like, you're fine. Like, calm down. You know what I'm saying? So that, I feel like that's the point I am with my trusted adults in my family.
JP?
For me, it really depends on the person and the relationship I have with them. I know my mom, she'll always see me as her little child. So she doesn't like, if it does come on, she'll turn it off because I'm her little child, even though I am 16. And I work with companies like this and they teach me about these things and I understand these things. But that's just how she'll always see it because I'm her child. My father, we kind of have that mutual understanding. Like, okay, I know about these things. If it comes down to it, I will ask you, but there's no need for you to directly bring it up to me because I mean, I understand how it works. He just kind of knows that what I'm doing is safe and that I'm not doing anything dumb that'll cause me or my family any harm in the long run. But when it comes down to adults like my brother or my sister or anyone here or even some people outside of my house and outside my family that I just know and I've created that type of relationship with, it's a lot different because one, my sister and my brother are closer to my age. So they're not far off from what I'm experiencing now. Like my sister is 4 years older than me. So she just left high school when I went in and I'm about to go into college when she's leaving college. So she knows exactly what happened as I'm going into it and what to expect when I'm going into it. So it's a lot more comfortable talking with people like her or adults who talk with high school students and deal with them often.
Belinda?
So I just wanted to say how like my experience is like basically the same as JP's. Like my trusted adult is my sister, and it's the same thing. Like I just entered as a freshman, and she's exiting as a senior. And it's the same thing like with her, like with your trusted adult, like, it doesn't even matter. So it's like, oh, like it's fine, like you trust them, like know what's gonna happen. But like when you're around different adults, it's like an awkwardness. It's like, oh, let me go act like I'm doing something else, and they're like, oh, let's go find the control real quick and skip it. Like with adults, it's more different because it's like, oh, I don't want them to see this because like I don't know if they know what's happening. Like it's a weird like moment.
If you're with, let's say, not your trusted adult, but an adult, and they do that, do you wish that they wouldn't? Or are you happy that they give you a segue because it's just hella uncomfortable and I don't want to be in this anyway? Or would it has helped if in those moments it played out and opened up the door to maybe ask a question or engage in a conversation about some things that you were curious about?
I don't know. I mean, for me, like in more cases than not, I feel like, ugh, like this is like when you see it by somebody else, because it's like we know that even if TV is the most television in the world and everything, it's like it's still not gonna be like it's like as realistic as it really is and everything. And I think that there are other ways to start a discussion about sex and sexual activities than like watching some. I don't know. Like it's just weird, because it's like softcore porn on the low, especially other, like more graphic stuff. And it's like, some things should be kept alone to yourself in your bedroom with the door closed.
I appreciate your honesty. Belinda, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say how like sometimes it's like, oh phew, like it like that moment already passed type of thing. Like it's like, oh, like at least we got through it. But then in some moments it's like, oh, I wish like they wouldn't be so weird about it, or like I wish they could act more normal about it. Like they need to understand that at some point, like I'm gonna understand like all of this. Like I'm gonna be an adult too. So in some moments it's like whew, and someone it's like just normalize it. Like it's normal. I understand these things.
Yeah, I agree with Belinda. Like I think adults are more weird, if more weirded out than we are at times when we're watching movies and like a love scene comes on. We looking at them like, yeah, no. And they be like, what? No. Like, what you mean? And I feel like it does open that gateway to like, okay, well, let's talk about it then. And then I'm here like, because I know like my trusted adult is my mom. And so whenever we do like watch movies where they have love scenes and stuff like that, it's more like, okay, we start like laughing about it. Then we get into like a conversation. I'm like, well, did you know this? Da, 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 da. She was like, no, I didn't know that. That's some new kid stuff. I'm not on that. Da, 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 da. So I think it does create like a gateway for people to like start that conversation, especially with their trusted adult.
Ayana, what are your thoughts?
I was going to say, I'm kind of like Reese. My mother is my trusted adult, and we're kind of like sisters rather than mother and daughter. So 9 times out of 10, we've already talked about whatever scene is going on the TV. But when there's like something new that's on the TV, we'll probably like pause it. She'll ask me like, how did I feel about what I just saw? And then I'll explain, and she'll explain to me what it was. And that's how we will talk about it. So we kind of do use like TV and media to talk about things. But usually she just tells me her stories and we call it like that.
Sounds like every parent gets that booklet and tell this story. It's like, please use Exhibit A if it
right.
is. Belinda, to your point, I'll tell you, my mom took me in at 15. I am a proud product of the foster care system. And it meant something that when we were watching Love Jones and this scene comes on, and I'm like, ooh. She was like, ooh, what? And you better be rapping it if they tap. And just say, and I was like, well, I'm not doing none of that yet. But it instantly made me feel like, but when I'm ready, though, I'm coming to you and not daddy. So I definitely get that feeling of in front of my dad. It made me feel like, I'm going to just look over here. But I was grateful that my mom kind of gave me this doorway to step through when the time was right and comfortable for me. So to all the trusted adults watching, we want it all the ways we can get it. We just want to be able to comfortably talk about it. And as much as it pains me to say this, that is our time for this episode, y'all. Time flies when you're having fun. Before we wrap, for those in our audience, if we could all go around panel and just give our best words of encouragement that you may see some hot sex and scenes and things of that nature, but remember, that'll be our phrase. But keep in mind, but remember. And whoever wants to, I already got a volunteer. Thank you, Danae. Let's go.
So I feel like my finish off to that statement would be, remember, don't feel pressured to, do it because you see it. And, that maybe since that's the example that you're seeing, you're like, well, why not try it? Be comfortable with trusting your gut and making your own decisions based off your experiences.
Mine would probably be, but remember that TV shows and movies aren't reality. So, don't use that as like okay, well, that's what happened. It can have hypothetical situations, but just remember that, like social media, TV, movies aren't really the reality. And there's some things that they don't really show. So,
I mean, overall, sex is stranger than fiction.
I would say, but remember, you are living your life for you. So don't follow TV, don't follow social media. You are living your life for you.
Mine would probably be like, you're your own person. You have your own story. You're unique how you are. And what you see on screen isn't how your life is going to be. You have your own story prepared for you. Just wait for the moment to come.
Nice. JP, bring us home.
All right, for me, I'm going to say everyone's different. So work at your own pace. Don't feel pressure to work faster than you can, because at the end of the day, you're you. No one can change that. Damn.
Hey, drop mic. And I would say, and remember, this is your life and everybody has theirs and they get to play their parts and pieces like they want to. This is your chessboard. Hey, JP, Queen's Gambit. This is your chessboard to play your way. Panel, I can't thank you enough. I'm so happy to have y'all in this space to have these kind of conversations, because we're opening up doorways, windows, text message chains, and everything else so that these conversations can keep happening. Thank you, Belinda, Lauren, JP, Danae, Reese, Ayana. Just sending y'all sanitized vibes and energies and love. And y'all ain't heard nothing yet, Village. Episode 5, we are talking condoms and everything about them, around them. And don't have, you thought this conversation was something. You ain't seen nothing yet. As always, thank you for turning into Sexist, the podcast series, because you didn't know, but now you know. And look at the young teachers that took you there. I know already you're thinking, what else did I miss? No worries. Go to sexistdc.org/the podcast and check out episode 1. Check out episode 2. We've talked sex and consent. We've talked sex and communication. Now we're talking sex, pop culture, music, movie, and TV. I can't wait for this condom conversation at all. But it's with that in mind. Did you know if you're a DC resident, you can get free condom and lube sent right to your house and nobody will know what you're getting in the mail? See, sexistdc.org got a lot of good stuff for you. Like, I know you're a trusted adult, probably sitting at the end of this podcast like, because you have a youth in your life and you've been trying to navigate this situation. No worries. If you download our trusted adult discussion guide at sexistdc.org, it will help you. It'll save your life. It'll get you all the way together. And a reminder, when you know better, you move better, you do better. So check out getcheckdc.org. Why? Because you can get a testing kit sent to your home to know right now where you stand when it comes to HIV and STD. Know your status, because that is important. And with that, I'm your girl Poet from WPGC. This is an official wrap of episode 4 of the Sexist DC podcast. Go talk sex, pop culture, sexual health with somebody. Go ahead and then send them to sexistdc.org so they can get all the extra information they need. Until we talk again. I swear we need some theme music to dance out to.